Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into something compelling. It's John Soforic's book, The Wealthy Gardener. And it's not your usual finance book, all charts and jargon. It's more about wisdom through stories. What's really interesting is Soforic himself, retired at 49, making, get this, $20,000 a month in passive income. And crucially, this wasn't luck, like a lottery win or inheritance. It wasn't, being some sports superstar either. It came from, well, pretty mundane financial choices consistently applied, plus a really disciplined mindset.
Exactly. And that's where his central metaphor, the gardener, it's just so perfect. It really shows that wealth building, it isn't some exclusive thing for, the chosen few. It's something anyone can cultivate. You, me, if you're willing to put in the work, the patience, use the right methods. So today, we're going to extract those key nuggets for your own financial path. See what makes his idea so useful.
Okay, let's plant that first seed then. Takeaway number 1. Your wealth is waiting for you, the power of habits and your why. So Foric's main idea here, it really echoes that old saying, don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but the seeds you plant. He's saying the biggest thing between you and a future wealth isn't the market or whatever. It's your habits, your behaviors. Get those right, and they they shape your future almost automatically. But, and this is key, for those seeds, those habits, to really grow, you absolutely must start with your why. Why do you want wealth? Seriously, what are you prepared to sacrifice? And that why, it needs to be super clear because, let's face it, distractions are everywhere, like that $700 jacket calling your name or that little thought, oh, over 6 can't be 7, right? So Foric's point is, lots of people say they want wealth, but maybe not bad enough to actually make the hard choices consistently.
It's a really strong point. It reminds me a bit of Charlie Munger, actually. Munger often said his drive wasn't about Ferraris or flashy stuff. It was about independence, pure and simple. He wanted what Tim Ferriss calls those 4 freedom multipliers, choosing what you do, when, where, and with whom. Munger even added, being able to speak his mind without worrying about the fallout. So, like Soforic suggests, a real why is usually rooted in that kind of independence, not just keeping up appearances.
Right, so you've got this powerful why. You're ready to plant. What's the absolute bedrock habit, the one that makes everything else possible? It's something you've probably heard, maybe from the richest man in Babylon. It's pay yourself first. Non-negotiable for Soforic.
And you might be thinking, well, shouldn't I just focus on making more money? Isn't that the key? Soforic tackles that head on. He uses this, pretty stark example. An investment banker making, say, $300,000 a year, but living large, spending it all. The day he loses his job, if nothing's saved, he could be, financially speaking, no better off than, say, a teenager washing dishes at Burger King. So the absolute crucial first step, no matter your income, is to always create a surplus right from the beginning.
Yeah, and that's where the habit thing comes back in so strongly. If you start that pay yourself first habit early, Soforic says it just becomes second nature, like riding a bike. You literally will know nothing else. So once your habits are aligned with your goal, you've got that solid why, then it becomes about patience. As he puts it, by sowing frugality, we reap liberty, a golden harvest. Beautifully put, actually. Okay, building on that. Takeaway number 2. From consumer to owner, the path to inevitable wealth. Soforic really pushes this one. There's a real sense of urgency. The faster you switch from just consuming to also being an owner, the faster you actually get rich. It's about getting yourself, as he says, invited to the banquet of the rich.
And he's very specific about how you become an owner. Primarily, he recommends 3 avenues: stocks, real estate, and your own business. These aren't just suggestions. They're the engines, really, that build lasting wealth, according to him.
It's a mindset shift, isn't it? Like, instead of just grabbing lunch at McDonald's, think about buying McDonald's stock. Or maybe instead of buying cans of Monster Energy drink, buy shares in Monster Beverage Corporation. He even paints this picture. Your friends are buying stuff at Walmart, maybe those Monster cans, and you own shares not just in Monster, but maybe in Walmart too. You're kind of doubling down on the spoils. Their spending benefits you.
Right. And the really powerful part, which Soforic explains well, is that even owning a tiny slice, let's say just 1/1000th of Monster, well, you get 1/1000th of the dividends. That immediately gives you an income advantage over people who aren't owners. And then that advantage, it just compounds as you buy more shares over time. Your income from owning stuff can eventually get as big as someone else's whole salary. And that, he argues, is when your wealth starts to feel, well, kind of inevitable.
It reminds me of that analogy he uses, the fish in the small pond. The fish that's just slightly bigger gets a bit more food, so it grows faster. Then its size advantage gets even bigger, gets even more food. Its dominance just compounds. It becomes inevitable in that little ecosystem. Okay, let's tackle something else. Takeaway number 3. Financial freedom is a noble pursuit beyond materialism. Because there's often this feeling, isn't there, that wanting money is kind of ugly.
Hmm.
Or maybe that having, excessive wealth somehow blocks you from enlightenment or heaven or whatever you believe. So Soforic pushes back hard on that.
He really does. And it carries weight because, well, he's seen both sides, real wealth and real poverty. He says pretty bluntly that lacking money often leads straight to fear, restlessness, and chronic despair.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole work-life balance idea feels pretty hollow, he found, when your life part is just spent worrying about bills.
Yeah, it kind of makes you think of that famous line from Jordan Belfort. You know the one. I have been a rich man and I have been a poor man, and I choose rich everything time. A bit crude, but gets the point across.
Well, Soforic illustrates it with a story about a guy named Brian. Brian had a decent middle-class life, seemed comfortable, but just never saved, never built that habit. Then the financial crisis hit. He lost his job, and boom, 3 years of just grinding, anxiety and fear, taking any gig, working crazy hours just to keep his family afloat. And the kicker is, even after he got a good engineering job again, that deep gut-level fear of it happening again, it stuck with him. He kept working like crazy, not because he had to anymore, but because, in Soforic's words, he never again wanted to find himself being a slave to circumstances. So the extra money he made wasn't for show. It was to buy peace of mind, to ease that fear, to help his kids, his parents, to make them all feel less vulnerable if things went bad again.
Wow. So the way Soforic frames it, the value of money is like the value of oxygen. You don't really think about it much when you have plenty, but you really notice when you don't. And let's be honest, someone with enough oxygen or financial security tends to be much more dependable and nicer to be around than one without oxygen. So pursuing financial freedom isn't selfish or ugly. It can actually be noble, enabling you to be, well, better for the people around you. Okay, moving on. Takeaway number 4. Rejecting the status quo, demand more from life. This one's a bit tough, actually. A rule from the book. You will not get the richest condition you want, but the poorest condition you will accept.
Oof.
Yeah, it's challenging. And he applies it super broadly. Like, if you tolerate living in a dumpy apartment with a dead-end job, maybe even a partner who isn't great, well, chances are that's where you'll stay. Just wanting better doesn't cut it. It's what you accept, what you tolerate that defines your reality. And you see this play out in investing too, right? If you're always lagging the market year after year, and you just kind of shrug and accept it. So Soforic says, well, you'll probably keep lagging, but if you refuse to tolerate that underperformance, if you say, no, this isn't good enough, then you'll go out and find the required knowledge necessary to improve your system. You'll take action.
It begs the question, though, why is changing the status quo so hard? Soforic uses the garden metaphor again. All-important work, like tending a good garden, is uneasy and challenging. There will always be weeds. They keep us working. It's never just done, but the one absolute certainty. If you tolerate bad conditions, the bad conditions will remain. Acceptance is the enemy of improvement here.
It really echoes that famous Steve Jobs sentiment, doesn't it? You've got to find what you love. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle. It's about demanding more, not just settling for mediocrity in all parts of life, including your finances. Okay, final big idea. Takeaway number 5, recognizing the seasons, the long game of wealth building. So Soforic paints wealth building like a drama, really, unfolding in 3 acts or seasons. And, the ages he gives around 30, around 60, they're just approximations, not hard and fast rules.
Exactly. So spring, that's roughly up to age 30. This season, he says, is mostly for learning about money. It's about planting the seeds for future wealth. And the main seed you're planting is actually knowledge. Let's be real, most people in their 20s aren't generating huge surpluses yet. So the focus should be on locking in those core habits we talked about. Pay yourself first, start thinking like an owner.
Okay.
And his advice here is critical. Don't rush it. Don't compare yourself constantly to others online or whatever. And definitely don't try to force becoming rich by 30. That often leads to taking stupid risks that mess things up later.
Right. Then comes summer, say roughly 30 to 60. This is when those seeds you planted should really sprout to life. Your money, if you've done spring right, should start growing much faster, maybe exponentially. Key advice here. Keep spending like you did before your income started to increase. Basically, live like a student but earn like an adult. He also suggests being strategic about your career, maybe switching jobs or using the threat of switching to boost your salary. And of course, keep hammering that pay yourself first habit. And be really careful about lifestyle inflation, keeping up with the Joneses. That can kill your progress in summer.
And finally, fall and harvest season. This starts around your 60s, give or take. This, Soforic says, is when you'll feel most strongly the result of your choices over the decades. You'll be the most happy or disappointed.
Hmm.
If you embrace the hard work in spring and summer, paid yourself first consistently, invested wisely, let compounding do its thing without messing it up, then yeah, you should pretty much be able to do whatever you want to do. That's the harvest. But if you didn't live below your means, if you didn't make the necessary sacrifices, if you never really adopted that owner's mindset, well, you'll probably have to continue doing something you might not want to do, simply because you chose the easier path earlier on.
It's a powerful framework. His overall message seems to be understand which season you're in, embrace its specific challenges and opportunities. There's sort of a universal flow. A time for sharpening the axe, a time for cutting down trees, and a time for reaping the rewards.
Absolutely, and it all circles back to that core idea from the beginning, your habits. They're either your biggest obstacle or your greatest asset. Get the right ones locked in, paying yourself first, thinking like an owner and wealth starts to look inevitable. Get the wrong ones, and yeah, maybe winning the lottery is your only shot. He really drives home that shift from consumer to owner, the nobility of seeking financial freedom, and the absolute need to reject mediocrity.
Wow. Okay, quite a journey through The Wealthy Gardener. We've hit on the power of habits and your why. That crucial shift from consumer to owner. Seeing financial freedom as something noble, not greedy. The need to reject settling and understanding those different seasons of building wealth.
Yeah, it really reinforces his core message. This isn't some magic trick.
Mhm.
With the right mindset, the right habits, consistently applied, building wealth becomes a predictable path. A path that, as he suggests, can make you more dependable for others and maybe just a bit more cheerful too.
So, a final thought for you listening. Based on everything we've dug into today from The Wealthy Gardener, what's maybe one specific seed of a habit you could plant or maybe cultivate a bit more starting today, knowing that your future harvest really depends on it? Or maybe, which season of wealth building do you feel you're in right now? And what opportunities or maybe challenges does that present for your very next step? Lots to think about there.